This is Rachel with the Untitled Public Library, and today I'm showing you guys how to do a DIY version of stained glass. So this craft comes in this kit for teens and adults ages 12 and up. Some of the supplies that you will need for this activity are a glass jar or tea light holder, dimensional paint or fabric paint, puffy paint, a paintbrush, some regular paints. You can use acrylics or tempera or anything like that, Elmer's glue or Mod Podge. I recommend Mod Podge if you have it, and a cup of water for rinsing your paintbrush. So I have my kit here, and I'm gonna start getting my stuff out. In your kit, you'll find your wrapped up glass holder with a puffy paint inside of it, and that's just to kind of help protect it from any chances of breaking. I've got my paintbrush. This little container here holds the Mod Podge. Here are my paint pots. And then if you want to, or if you have supplies at home to do this, you certainly can. You can use a little LED tea light to dress it up at the end. You might want to have a Sharpie on hand, and it can be also useful to have some masking tape. So let's get started. I'm gonna unwrap carefully my little glass holder here. Beautiful. And it's got a sticker at the bottom. You can leave that on or take it off. If you're using a real candle, I recommend you take it off just for safety reasons. And of course, if you do use real candles, be very careful anytime you're working with fire or an open flame. Now, I've already made one of these prototypes, and what I did for that prototype is I used my puffy paint first to design the outline, and then I went over with the Mod Podge mixed with the paint to fill in the different areas between where the puffy paint was, to fill in the shapes and whatnot. This time I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to use a Sharpie to outline my design to start, and then I'm going to fill in my designs with the paint and Mod Podge combination, and then go over it at the puffy paint with the end, because you'll see in the end comparison photos that my other prototype had a little bit of excess paint and color seeping over onto my puffy paint, and it just gave it a little bit less of a clean look. So this one I'm going to try and make it a little bit more clean and polished looking. So I'm going to use my Sharpie to draw. I think I'm going to do a similar design as I did on my other one. I'm going to draw a little heart on my glass, and then I'm going to kind of break up the glass into sections by drawing lines in all different directions. Now you can use straight lines and make it very geometric like I'm doing, or you can absolutely use curved lines. There's lots of options. For me, the straight lines kind of give it that classic stained glass look. So I'm trying to use mostly like squares and rectangles, some triangles as well, just to keep it looking geometric, kind of cool looking. And I'm basically just drawing lines wherever I feel like it. You can connect them however you want. You can even use the picture on the little tag here showing you when the program is for inspiration. So that's kind of the type of design that I'm going for. And I'm just going to continue on with my drawing. My hands are a little shaky. My lines aren't super straight, but that's okay because we will be covering this up with the colored paint first and then the puffy paint. So it's going to be a-okay. And these lines that I'm drawing here are where the puffy paint is going to be. So I'm basically just distinguishing the sections where I want my different colors. If you want to plan ahead, you can use multiple colored Sharpies to do this outlining and drawing step, and then you have a little bit more freedom in how you choose to color them in, or I guess less freedom, but you're more prepared for whatever your coloring in plan is or will be. I'm just going to do a few more lines here. Get it a little bit more divvied up. Cool. I'm pretty happy with my lines there. You can kind of see it almost looks like my gloss is broken in a few places now, but that's just the Sharpie. Next, I'm going to grab my paintbrush and a little bit of paint. Now, if you're using masking tape, you could have used that as well to guide your lines, to make sure that you get nice, straight, crisp lines instead of the wiggles that I got, but I'm not too worried about that for now. So I'm going to go ahead and open up. I'm going to start with this blue paint. Some of these paints are a little bit older, so they may be a little watery or a little extra dry. That's totally okay. The texture of the paint isn't going to matter a whole lot because we do have this Mod Podge that we're going to be mixing it with. So I'm going to open up my Mod Podge carefully. It's also good to have some paper towels handy. I did not think that through. And you'll also want a cup of water so that you can rinse your brush between colors. So I'm mixing here some of my Mod Podge and some of my paint, and just kind of using this dry corner of the Mod Podge jar to make a lighter blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and start filling in some of my shapes. Now you can do a really thin, light coat of paint and Mod Podge if you want, or you can put on kind of a thicker layer. It's totally up to you. I'm going to use a kind of thin uniform layer for this particular one, but you'll see on my other prototype I kind of glopped it on a little bit more, and so you'll see how that affects the texture. Cool, so there's some blue, and I like to kind of alternate the colors all around, so I'm going to do one color all at once, but I'm going to skip and pick and choose which shapes I'm filling in, and not fill in hopefully two blues right next to each other, and so on and so forth. Now everyone got different colors of paints and different colors of puffy paints. It's one of those kind of get what you get situations, but I hope that whatever colors you were given, you find a good way to get creative with them to make those color schemes work together. I semi-selfishly picked this one out on purpose because pink and blue and purple is my favorite color combination. So as you can see, while I'm painting, I'm just using my other hand on the inside of the glass to hold it, because if I hold it too much on the outside besides on the edges here, you run a chance of smudging areas that you've painted already, or getting paint all over yourself, or Mod Podge, or both. Now, the reason we're mixing the Mod Podge and the paint together, there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, it helps seal and attach the paint to the glass, because the glass is pretty slick. It's not necessarily cut out for having paint just slapped on there. So the Mod Podge kind of adds a finish to it that helps it stay on. Also, the Mod Podge dries clear, so it adds a bit of transparency to your paint, so that instead of just having a piece of glass that used to be clear and now it's blue, for example, you'll have a piece of glass that used to be clear and now it's clearish, bluish, kind of transparent, and the light of the candle or the automatic tea light will kind of peek through it and make a really cool effect. This is also a craft where you can use other supplies if you have other things lying around the house. If you've kept paintbrushes from some of our past crafts, you can skip the trip to the sink between colors by utilizing more than one paintbrush. But for this particular kit, I just put one brush in your little baggies, because if you rinse it, that's all you really need. And so we're gonna make do with what we've got. Okay, so I'm gonna let my blue dry for a moment while I go and rinse my brush, and then I'm gonna come back and do my other two colors. Okay, so I'm back with a fresh brush, and I've decided to use my bag here as a surface. I just tore it open, and I'm going to be using that as a surface for the rest of my work so that I don't get any paint or Mod Podge on my table. And I'm going to move on to the purple paint now and just do the same thing. I'm going to fill in whatever areas I feel like should be purple with some purple. I'm going to add a little bit of Mod Podge to the mix. Now, I used the lid. I'm using the lid of the Mod Podge as well as a mixing tray / holder. So I'm just kind of showing how you can really make do with what you've got, even if you don't have a palette or things like that. But I'm not too worried about my colors mixing too much, especially because pink and purple and blue kind of go well together. I'm going ahead and mixing my purple in the same pot that I mixed the blue in with the Mod Podge, because I know that it'll just make the purple more blue, if anything. So I'm not too worried about that. And I'm mixing it up. You'll notice it gets a little bubbly sometimes while you're mixing, if you're mixing the paint with the Mod Podge, and that's normal and fine. It kind of depends. If you really put it on thick, like I was saying before, like I did on my other prototype, you can see some of the bubbles. Some of the bubbles may dry on there. But if you're doing a thinner, more consistent layer, like I am on this one, you don't have to worry about that so much. So the really the only difference between doing a thick layer and a thin layer is when you do a thick layer of the color, you kind of dab it on. And when you're doing a thinner layer and you want it to be a little bit more see-through or light on the glass, you'll just do kind of soft, quick strokes. And you'll do those strokes kind of over and over until you get the thickness of paint that you like. Cool, so I'm going to keep on painting. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell from there, but I'm not doing a super great job of staying within the lines that I drew with my Sharpie. And that's okay because, like I said, we're going to go over that with the puffy paint as well. So these are just sort of like guiding lines for now. The main thing is getting all the sections filled in with colors, however you like them. And you don't have to necessarily do geometric sections like I was saying. You don't necessarily have to do geometric sections. You could do wiggly lines, you could do circles, you could even do kind of like a stained glass landscape. I think that would be really cool to see. So if anyone gets creative or thinks outside of the box on this one, on how you paint and decorate your stained glass creation, please send me a picture. I would love, love, love to see it. So as I mentioned before, I'm alternating between holding the top and bottom edges and holding the jar container from the inside, just so that I don't make too much of a sticky mess on my fingers, because not only can that be messy and kind of gross, but it also can actually strip away the layers of the work you've put in, and we don't want to do that. We want all of our colors to show through, bright and true, or in this case kind of pastel-y, but still very pretty. I'm going to add a little bit more to this section here. I've already done some purple here, but it looks like the Mod Podge kind of overpowered the paint a little bit, and it dried a little bit more clear than I wanted, so I'm just adding a little bit more of the paint in on this section. And I might go over a few of the other purple sections with this slightly more paint loaded brush as well, just to give it a little bit more of a colorful effect. I do want it to be pastel, but not so pastel that you can't tell what color it is. There we go. I feel good about that. So I'm going to set that down. I've got 2 out of my 3 colors. I'm going to do pink, and then I might do another round with the blue even. But for the pink, I've got a fresh, clean brush. And because I don't want it to necessarily be a purpley pink, I'm going to use my Mod Podge that's on the lid to mix it together with. And I think, too, to add a little extra pop, I'm going to do a higher ratio of paint to Mod Podge in this pink. So hopefully it'll come out kind of peachy, corally, that sort of thing. And I'm just dipping my paintbrush in the paint and then dipping it and swirling it in with the Mod Podge and doing that a few times just to get that color incorporated. Awesome. So I love this nice peachy color, and now let's apply it to our jar. I can already tell that I didn't plan out my colors in a way where I'm going to be able to have different colors all touching to where none of the colors are duplicated edge to edge. However, I think that's okay because it does add a little bit of realism to the stained glass when you have some color repetition and things like that. I think it will be still super cute. Sorry for bumping the camera, y'all. Now, this Mod Podge and paint combination dries fairly quickly, which is nice. You can still see the brush strokes due to the nature of the mixture once it dries, so it can be kind of hard to tell, but it will become much more transparent, and that's one way that you can tell that it's dried up quite a bit. The puffy paint, on the other hand, the dimensional paint that we'll be using to do the outlining, that takes a long time to dry. The manufacturers recommend that you give it at least 4 hours of drying time, and I enthusiastically second that, and would even encourage you perhaps to let it dry overnight before you attempt any sort of actual candle burning or anything like that with it, or before you try to move it around or wrap it up or anything like that too much. Okay, let me rotate my grip a little bit. And then I think for these couple of squares that I have left, I might just mix a deeper purple, since my original purple came out so light and pastel-y. I might just mix a deeper purple to put in there. So I'm gonna take some of this purple Mod Podge without rinsing my brush, so that it adds a little bit more of that red into, because again, the red and the blue, or the pink and the blue, just make more purple. And then I'm gonna add a little bit more blue paint to this Mod Podge as well. And maybe a touch more purple as well, just to really round it out. There we go, there's a good glop of blue. Get that all mixed together. Ooh, that's a lovely, like, periwinkle color. Oh, I think that's gonna be perfect. Awesome. So I'm gonna fill this, use this to fill in my little remaining sections. Got a couple on the back. Oops. I wiped away some of my pink by accident with my thumb when I tried to fix a little bit of overpainting, so I'm going to fill that in real quick. Awesome. And then I'll fill in this big guy, and I think I'm going to leave my heart, which is my central shape, I'm going to leave that clear so that the light can really shine through it when we've got our little tea light in there. So I'm gonna try to go around the edge of the heart a little bit more carefully, just so that design stands out a little bit more, can kind of pop and be crisp. Okay, so I've got all my sections filled in. It's looking pretty cute. Let that dry for a moment. I think we should let this dry for about 20 minutes, and then once we do that, we'll be good to add our outlining. Okay, so we have let our colors dry in all of our sections for a little bit, and now we're going to go over our Sharpie lines with this 3D fabric paint. It's already unsealed and everything, so you just screw off the lid, and then to practice with the thickness that you want, or with the amount of pressure that you'll need to use to get it to come out just right, I like to do a little bit on my background paper, do a few lines just to get the hang of how much pressure I'll need to use, and that will help me determine how thick my lines are going to be, as well as how hard I'm squeezing. Now when it gets a little lower on paint in here, you do have to squeeze a little bit harder. So that's my disclaimer, but generally it's good to practice beforehand so that you can let it really, so that you can let yourself get the muscle memory, the feel for it. I'm going to start with my heart. And just go all the way around. Beautiful. And then I'm just going to start carefully outlining or overlining all of these little Sharpie lines I drew. So my goal is going to be that I won't see any of the black from the Sharpie once I'm done. I would like to just have the pinks and purples and blues kind of speak for themselves. And if you move a little bit more quickly once you get the hang of it, that tends to make the lines a little bit finer and straighter. But you can always kind of trace back over like I'm doing with the tip here to get some of the bumps out. And remember too that real stained glass has some lumps and bumps. It's like that welded metal material, right? And so that doesn't always look perfect. So embrace the imperfections. This is a learning process for all of us, and we're mostly here to have fun. Cool. So there are a couple ways you can do this. Like I said, the drying time for this paint is pretty significant. You're going to want to let it dry for at least 4 hours, maybe overnight. You can do it in sections. For example, I'm half tempted to stop here just so that I have more room to work, so that this is nice and dry and I can continue to pipe the rest without worrying about smudging it. I think I'm going to carry on for now though and see if I can do the whole thing in one shot. But if you want to take breaks, let it dry and outline it in batches, you absolutely can. The other way you can do this, like I mentioned at the beginning, is you can do the puffy paint first, let it dry overnight, and then fill in the sections between the puffy paint. And I'll show you, once I'm done with the puffy paint on here, I'll show you what my prototype that I did that way looks like. So you can compare and contrast and decide which one you want to do. I have a little bit of excess puffy paint down here. I'm gonna wipe that away with my paper. You want to do any wiping away or cleaning off pretty much right away when you're using this, because once it dries, it's there. So don't dawdle or say that you'll try to scrape it off later if you see a mistake or something that you'd like to scrape off, because you could end up scraping off your other paint as well. Sometimes it helps to readjust your grip a little bit. And patience for this part is important if you want to have consistent lines. However, like I said, we're going for our work of art here. We're not necessarily trying to be first try geniuses with our puffy paint. This is the DIY version. We want it to look charming and cute, and we want to have fun while we're doing it. Okay, I think I just have one more line. Let me readjust here carefully. This line right here. I'm just going over it a little bit extra because I missed the Sharpie line a little bit and I don't want that to show up. There we go. If you choose, you can also do a line of puffy paint around the bottom edge and the top edge of your creation. I'm not going to do that with this one, but I did do it on my other prototype, so you guys will be able to see what that looks like. So while this guy starts drying, like I said, it's going to be at least 4 hours before it's fully dry, but I can, I will show you a picture at the end of the completed product, and that's kind of the gist of it. It's not a super involved or super tricky activity, but it does require a little bit of patience and some steady hands, and it is creative and fun. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Before I show you the final images of this prototype, let's take a look at my old one. So this one, instead of using the Sharpie, I just put black puffy paint right on where I wanted the lines and divisions to be. I let it dry overnight, and then I went back in with the Mod Podge and paint combination to fill in the colors afterwards. So there are a couple places where you can see like a little bit of green or purple or orange coming over the black. If that bothers you, you want to do it this way, but if you don't mind a little bit of overlap, you can absolutely do it this way as well.